Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the entire PNW, the Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you are in the right place. This is the podcast for you. It's where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Weedin, and my co-host today is the incomparable Michelle Bomberger. Our guest is Odette Danielle. Odette is the visionary CEO of Celebrity Gourmet Ventures, Inc., and a maestro of dessert craftsmanship. Her Tacoma-based family bakery creates not just cakes, but edible masterpieces that are a feast for both your eyes and your palate. I'm getting hungry already. Alongside her sister, Marianne, Odette elevated dragonfly cakes from a local gem to a national treasure with products gracing the shelves of Whole Foods and Harry and David. But she's more than just a baking virtuoso. She's a voice in the industry as the host of the Celebrity Gourmet Podcast, highlighting women in the culinary world. Odette also wears the hat of entrepreneur in residence at the University of Washington, Tacoma's Milgard School of Business, and is an active member of the Entrepreneur Organization in Seattle. We've had a lot of guests from EO. And if that's not enough, she's preserving her Philippine heritage through Himaya Garden. And I hope I said that correctly, Odette. Himaya Garden, a captivating event space in Tucson, Arizona. Odette, welcome. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. Michelle, we are ubiquitous. And now, open for business, our patron membership, the Shrimp Peelers, offering exclusive content to grow your business and enrich your life. You'll find access on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And now, before we bring on Odette, hello, Michelle. How are you doing? Welcome.
Hey, Dan. It's good to see you as always.
Thank
Feels a little
you.
like fall in the Pacific Northwest, even though it seems too early by my standards.
Well, we had thunderstorms yesterday, which broke about, it seemed like a forever of hot days. But, you know, August now means, at least in the North Kitsap School District, Michelle, school started. School started yesterday, August 29th, in our school district. And it was a pretty important day in my family. My oldest granddaughter, Ellie, started kindergarten. Huge deal. Big deal. I had to do all the pictures, had to do everything was incorporated in this big first day. But I got to tell you, the one who was probably taking it the hardest was my daughter, her mother. Mindy was a little bit, was challenged with sending her baby, who's like the oldest of the four, off to kindergarten. You probably remember those days.
I do. And even more recently, I'm taking my youngest on college tours. So she is getting ready to start her first day of school, at least before her secondary education. So
in other words, I got somebody starting kindergarten, just starting. You've got somebody starting their senior year.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
It goes fast. It goes fast.
It goes fast. It does. And you know, it goes fast as well, Michelle, is just the year. It felt like we were just wishing each other a happy new year not that long ago. I don't know about you, but that's how it feels like to me. And speaking of that, we're going to have a lot of celebrations coming up. And thanks to you, we have a guest that can help anybody out with this. When we say let them eat cake, I think she would agree. Odette Danielle, read your bio. My mouth is watering already to learn more about all of the cool things that you're doing. Welcome to the show, and tell us, how did you get involved in this?
Oh, I could say that I got involved in this because of my family. When we came to Washington in 1998, we started the business in Lacey, but actually it started way before that. I was just in the Philippines. I was born in Cebu. which is an island in the Philippines. And I went to a little bakery with the picture of my grandfather, my grand uncle, who I knew as Lolo Tinong. He started our family in this bakery trajectory back in 1940, 1945, I guess. After World War II, the U.S. government gave rations to the Filipino people after they were freed from the Japanese occupation. And these rations included flour, salt, and all the ingredients to make bread. My grandfather had been an apprentice for a baker when he was a young boy. So he took the rations and created an oven out of these tanks, like oil barrels. And he started making bread. And from that, he opened up a little bakery. And by the time I was born, and that was, I'm 53. So he had a bakery and my mother worked for him. And that is how we started in the bakery business. My mother learned to bake. Her uncle took her from the rice paddies and sent her to school, taught her the craft of baking. She got married to my dad. She was still baking. And, she ended up running my grandfather's bakery, who was now owned by, his son, who was my uncle. And from there, we moved to Guam, immigrated there. I learned to decorate cakes when I was 10 years old as part of the workforce. As you know, that's what happens with immigrant families. And that's how I learned my craft. And that's when I learned to love decorating cakes. I was 10 years old. It was better than slicing bread. And after college, I moved to, met my husband. We moved to Guam. We lived there for about 6 years, my husband and I. Moved to Washington State. Then we opened up our little bakery in Lacey. And that was in 1999. And thereafter, we just grew. That's how it started. It was more of a, the bakery business has always been a means to uplift our family from poverty. It was not like, my story is definitely not I baked in my grandma's kitchen. It was more of like, you labor because you need to survive, girl. And this is a skill that'll allow you to survive. And it's been, I'm third generation of that. And my kids will be the fourth generation.
I love this story because, we hear about family business a lot, right? We hear about how it does grow families, it grows communities, grows, employment. But where do you see yourself being different? Because you've taken this business beyond just, a bake shop, a cake decorating shop. You're doing so much more. Can you talk a little about the vision and kind of how you are expanding your brand and where you're going?
Yes. So my family has always had this, the relationship with the baking industry and my family has always been this contentious kind of emotional bond, if not like a source of trauma for some, because, we needed it to survive. And the difference is that at least my family now, my sister and I took it to a different place where it's a source of creativity and it's a source of joy and it's a source of beauty. So instead of baking breads, which is what our family's about, we took that one portion of the baking industry, which is cakes and decorating cakes and making beauty and making edible art. And that's made us different. And that's allowed us to thrive since going to be 25 years. We're celebrating 25 years of being in this business. And I'm telling you, it is not an easy business to be in or to stay in. You have to have a lot of love and a lot of passion in order to stay in this business.
So Odette, I've never heard edible art before. I love that. I think you need to trademark that in some way if it's not already. Michelle is in the legal business. I've been in the insurance business. Nobody wants to hear. Nobody likes us, Michelle, right? Nobody just wants.
I object.
I like her.
But I think edible arts. I think people are going to flock to that more than the law and insurance. Would you agree with me, Michelle?
Yes. Odette's company made my daughter's 16th birthday cake, and she was into mushrooms, and it's this like tree stump with mushrooms growing out of the top. And it was the most beautiful thing I may have ever seen on a cake.
So that's my question,
Aww.
Odette. I mean, you talked about the artistic part of it. I've got to think that that's an ongoing creativity thing for you and your sister to
Yes.
constantly be creating, and not just creating cake after cake, but to make each one a masterpiece. Can you talk about just your process in doing that?
So the way we would do it, first of all, I don't think I can trademark edible art because it's common use or it's too descriptive, right?
I just liked it.
You're the lawyer, Michelle, so you would know. But yeah, so our process has always been like we get ideas from trends. A lot of it is coming from our customers. They send us pictures, they send us inspiration, and then we give our 2 cents. And right now I'm no longer in the decorating room, although I have my team takes care of that. They do all the designs. They're much younger than me, so they're a bit more hip. Although right now, like the trend is back again to like the old school, which is what we call Wilton style, where, you see the little drapes of things like that I'm really good at. But the process is really coming from our customers because we have 2 brands. One is Celebrity Cake Studio. It's more of a custom style bakery where you can come in, you have ideas, we can create that idea and make it come to life for you. And we also have another brand called Dragonfly Cakes, and that is more of a wholesale. We ship those in mass quantities all around the country, and that comes from our brain. I mean, we're like, oh, that's so cute, we love that, oh, I want to do that. And that's more from coming from us. So there's just 2 different ways that we run our business.
Well, I know I've learned so much from just being an EO with you and your intentionality around like not only your business, but your relationships and just being a leader and a professional. I noticed you mentioned the relationship in the industry. And I think that's kind of fascinating, is when we think about, competition industry, where do we sit versus our competitors? But you recently launched something that's even more collaborative, and that's your podcast. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I launched my podcast. It's called Celebrity Gourmet Podcast. I've been in the industry for so long, like basically all my life. And so I've created a lot of friendships in the bakery industry. What I love about it is because it's a very friendly and collaborative industry. I don't know any other industry where you can just call somebody and ask them for a recipe and they'll give it to you, or ask them what kind of equipment they use to produce whatever, and they'll give you the source, they'll give you contacts. It's a very, very helpful, collaborative, just like I say it's loving industry. And that's what I love about it. So because of that, I have a lot of women friends who own bakeries. And, the idea kind of came about after walking a huge bakery show back in the fall. And a lot of the bakery in this bakery industry, these are like the big conglomerates where like they bring like multi-million, $100 million equipment in there. These are the ones that make all of the bread for like, the grocery store aisle. So this is not the homemaker stuff. And a lot of the people in the booth who are selling the equipment, they're men, right? So they're all these men, and the people walking the aisle who are like creating the ideas and all that are women. So I saw all of this, and what my experience is that it was very difficult to get a serious conversation when you're buying pieces of equipment when you're a woman, especially a woman that looks like me. And I found that to be very telling. And I said, you know what? I think our stories need to be elevated because we're the creatives in this industry, and I want to just elevate the voices in that. And so you started researching, like, how do I launch a podcast? So I started doing that and invited the first get-go were my close friends. So they'll have, patience around my, learning. So now, I'm on my 15th interview of a bakery, of women who own bakeries. It's very niche. I don't know who's going to listen, But we all have stories of how we engage our lives and our businesses. So I find it super fun.
Well, Odette, I listened in preparation for this. I listened to a couple of them, and I'll just tell everybody they were fun. If you like entrepreneurship and eating, you're going to enjoy these. Well, Odette, we're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor, and when we come back with our guest, Odette Danielle, for a hot or not section of the show, we're going to find out what she thinks about gluten-free and vegan. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. The power of law is often used against those who don't know what they don't know, but not anymore. Equinox levels the field for entrepreneurs. Just as your business may now tap into a managed service provider for accounting, HR, or IT help, you can now tap into the power of law with Equinox. Equinox's strategic legal counsel gives your business the same strategic law advantages as the megacorps. But unlike the mega attorneys, Equinox brings a balance of strategic, business, and practical legal guidance. You set the priorities in the budget. The Equinox team builds a personalized plan at a fixed monthly cost to best serve your legal priorities and needs. Take on business complexities with the power of law on your team. Visit equinoxbusinesslaw.com. Schedule a complimentary, no obligation evaluation to see where your business stands. Level the playing field with Equinox Strategic Legal Counsel.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the Pacific, Northwest, and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger with our guest today, Odette Danielle, and we're going to start our next segment, Hot or Not.
Danielle, this is where Danielle. What did I say? That see, I was working on Danielle.
You called yourself.
I called myself. I'm going to try that again. Odette, this is where Michelle and I pepper you with questions about business, about life, about baking, about kids, about all the cool things. And you're going to tell us whether it's hot or not, and then why or why not. So Odette, I kind of teased it out coming out of the break. Hot or not, gluten-free and vegan?
Hot.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm gluten-free and my wife is both gluten-free and vegan. Tell us about it.
Yes. So gluten-free started decades ago. I remember when it first came out, and the reason why it was first and foremost in my mind is because my son was allergic to gluten. And my son is now 19, and he has gotten over his allergy, but when he was little, it was a challenge, such a challenge. So I am so glad that there are options for people who have gluten intolerances, because it can wreak havoc in your gut. So yeah, it's hot. It remains hot to me. And being vegan, I was vegan when I was in college. So before it was hot in the 90s, I was I was a vegetarian and then vegan for 8 years, like back in the 90s. So there was no option really except beans and rice. But now there's so many other delicious options for, vegans. And I am still I call myself like a flexitarian, that's a very common word, but my family knows I go into these spurts. So I would say, well, I'm vegan again. So we call it my vegan again phase. So some days I eat vegan, some portions of my life, I've been in and out of veganism, but mostly when I bake at home, I don't use animal products, mainly because I'm allergic to dairy. So we are working on a vegan line, mainly because, as my sister's children are also allergic to certain products like dairy and all kinds like nuts, etc. So we're slowly pivoting so that our facility is nut free, which it is. And also, we have one nut in there, and I believe it's pecan for one product, but otherwise all the other nuts are not allowed. We do use dairy, but we have an entire line that we're working on so that it's something that we can eat. Although I I eat cake no matter what. It's just like I just don't drink it. I can eat dairy but not drink it for some reason. But yeah, hot.
Awesome to see so many options available to folks. I think in the last couple of decades, it's the doors have certainly opened. All right, hot or not, being in business with your kids.
Hot. I love being in business with my kids. So your grandson or grandchild just went to kindergarten, and Michelle, you have a son that just entered senior year. Well, my daughter just graduated from college. She graduated in May. So I started the business even before she was born. When I had her in my womb, I was at a bakery show. I actually was taking an order for a wedding cake when I was about to deliver my son. My kids grew up in the bakery business, and the way I grew up in the bakery business, it was so forced, and it was kind of sad that I couldn't play outside because I was constantly working at the bakery. But my kids have grown up in the bakery business and find it super fun, and they want to be part of it. So my daughter right now is the director of marketing. She's taking a sabbatical from her master's degree and in management information systems from the University of Arizona. And so she's our director of marketing. My son wants to be a product sourcer. He's a junior at the University of Washington in Tacoma. My goddaughter, who also, is just graduated from UCLA, is our digital marketing manager. So like my kids love the business. Like who wouldn't though? Who wouldn't love a business where you can have, it's all joy. It really is all joy, and everybody's your friend. So yeah, I do think that it's just a blessing to have my kids be very, very interested and super excited and proud to be part of the business.
Well,
And
Deb,
I also want to.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I want to stay on that topic because I think it's incredibly refreshing to hear your excitement about it. Because frankly, I Michelle and I probably have spent time with many a family business, and sometimes the excitement level isn't there, and I really find that engaging. My follow-up question on that is this. You talked about how you're third generation, and you gave a great story about how it happened. I've got to believe now with your kids talking about college and university and what they're studying in preparation, you are probably learning how to decorate cakes and do all of that. Now there's some, as the next generation comes, what is important for them to learn to help continue to grow the business?
They see it as a family legacy, and they also see it as a way to fully express themselves as part of our family unit. So they're very proud of that. And the fact that we are basically laborers, right? Like we belong to a very big extended family, and we were like the poor ones because we are the workers. Like we work for the rich family members. And so my kids are proud of the fact that, now they can express their full selves, but within an industry that's creative and it's not necessarily oppressive. And, my son is just coming home from Cebu. He spent 3 months there learning the, Cebuano, which is my first language. He was interning for my sister-in-law who owns a law office, right? So he's learning all kinds of different things like in the Philippines. So they're learning about their identity. They're learning about, they're having a connection with their family and their family history. And so they're very proud of that. And I wanted to add too that my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, she has 2 children, and they're, one is going to be in 4th grade, the other one's in 6th grade, and they both want to be part of the business. My little nephew, my little nephew Angelo, for career day when he was in 1st grade, wore a bakery vest because he's going to be CEO. So he's like, that's his dream. He wants to be the CEO of the bakery. And that's all they want to do is go to the bakery. All they want to do. Like the kids. Yeah. If you go to any of the shows and, the industry shows, my kids are the ones running it. My kids can set it up, run it, and talk to people and vendors. They're very excited. I'm very, very, very proud of them.
So Odette, I'm going to tell you, we have a future thing coming up, and I'm just going to announce it now. My kindergarten aged granddaughter likes to podcast with me. We have a little podcast that we do. So my guess is that somewhere in the future, she'll be doing the Shrimp Tank podcast, interviewing your nephew, who's going to be CEO. That I feel like that's coming.
That's going to come. That's going to come. I mean, these kids are powerful. I'm really, really hopeful for the future. They're, they're truthful. They're like integrated. They're grounded. I just find it so refreshing. There's a new wave of young ones that are coming up that just give me hope for the future.
I love it. I love this conversation. Because my son actually worked for us this summer as well. And he's contemplating, law kind of in conjunction with his philosophy major, because he loves the philosophy piece of it. And so, balancing that passion, that pragmatism, I think is something that can be so challenging for young people who really want to have meaning in the work that they do. Something I wanted to kind of touch on next is on the hot or not topic, mentoring. And if the answer is hot, where have you found the most powerful mentors and relationships to help you as a leader in your company?
Mentoring, super hot. In the beginning, I had my landlord was my mentor, my very first landlord. I was 28 years old. I convinced him to lease me a little building in Lacey, Washington. He has just recently passed. I was there at his bedside. And the way he lived his life and the way he mentored me was to just, be brave, relax, don't worry about it. He was, find beauty in things. Like he gave me a lot of lessons in life. And then there was also a customer that helped me out in terms of business. He taught me like because I was a teacher for 5 years. I didn't have a business degree, but this particular mentor of mine, his name is John Lewison. He has also passed, and he taught me a lot about, how to acquire businesses. He taught me what EBITDA was. He taught me what a P&L was, what a balance sheet was. He taught me, all kinds of things that just informed the way I saw business, and that also shaped the way I made decisions, like in acquiring businesses and the way I expanded in what I invested in and how slow or fast we grew. In acquiring, expanding like all kinds of into all kinds of other things like real estate or anything like that. I did have guidance in that. And I also, when I joined EO, Entrepreneur Organization, I just met so many inspiring people who came, at just a phone call away at any point in time when I have a question or I needed help, not just for the chapter in Seattle, but because EO is such a global chapter, I can call on people from all over the world, wherever they are. They send me messages and all that. And in turn, I do the same, right? So I mentor EO Accelerator, which is kind of the sub for EO Seattle. So if you don't qualify for EO Seattle, there's EO Accelerator, and your minimum revenue is $250,000. And I ran that program for a couple of years, and I'm still participating in that. It's like I mentor EO accelerators, and I also a mentor for Startup Tucson, because somehow I met them through just an idea that I had of starting a food incubator in Tacoma, and then it kind of went around in a circle. I went to University of Washington in Tacoma, met a woman there who was going to start an entrepreneurship program. And then I was asked to be a mentor for Startup Tucson. So I do mentor others, and I mentor too. So it's all a full circle.
That's hot. I love that. I love that a lot. We have to, speaking of all the things you talked about, we have to pay the bills. We're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Odette Danielle, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to find out who Odette would share a slice of cake with. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, PC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Michelle Bomberger here with Dan Weedin and our exceptional guest today, Odette Danielle. We're going to start our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
All right, Odette, we're going to turn up the heat a little bit, and you can't rely on asking Michelle if you can plead the fifth, because she's going to be asking some of the questions too. We're going to have some fun with this. If you have to plead the fifth for whatever reason, you only get one, and then we'll really throw some fastballs. But I'll start out with an easy one, I think. Let's say that you get to create a cake and sit down and have a slice with it with somebody famous, anyone who is, well, it doesn't have to be famous, anyone who is dead or alive. Who would you want to sit down and have a slice of your own cake with it? And secondary question, what kind of cake would it be?
Well, the first, let's see, first top of mind, although I will share cake with anyone. So top of mind currently, I would make a cake and share a cake with Michael Singer. And he is the author of The Untethered Soul. And I'm currently reading one of his books, one of 3. And so I absolutely am taken by what he writes about and living a life of surrender. So I would make a cake of a hand letting go of a rope.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that? And then I'll eat it with him. And it would be a marble eclair cake with fresh raspberries.
And the thing is, if you've seen their cakes, you know that she actually could make a cake that's a hand letting go of a rope. Like, I don't know how you do that, but you can do it.
Yeah.
I want to ask a common question that we cover in this section, and that is, if you could start a business from a hobby, what would it be?
I'd be a florist.
Really?
Yes. So if I wasn't, I tell people this, and my husband knows this, because, he asked me, the pie shape of your brain, like what makes up flowers? And I'm like, let's say 80%, because I absolutely since I was little, I grew up in the city in Cebu, so there were no flowers. We live in asphalt. So I was obsessed with anything that was colorful. And so I still am that way. I have a garden in where I live, and I just started planting a lavender farm. It's a culinary lavender. And so now I have big plans for that. And then I, bought this, our new property in Tucson, Arizona is a garden. So it's kind of dried out because the former owner turned off the water, but we're reviving that, a garden. So I'm a big gardener and I love flowers. So if I were to do a different business, I'd be a florist. Oh, and I did my first wedding August 5th for a friend. And I did the flowers along with 2 other friends, and it was beautiful. And I used flowers for my garden. I used like a lot of hydrangeas and things and the conversation came up because she said, oh my God, it's so expensive to do flowers. I was like, I have flowers. I'll do it. Amongst everything else that I did wedding flowers.
Odette, for some reason, I feel like there's a side hustle coming out of all this. I don't know why, but I just feel like there's a side hustle coming. Okay, you brought up your husband. My wife, Barb, I know that there are items in my closet that if she could get her hands on and throw away, she would. And the feeling's probably likewise. I got to believe, and I'm curious, what is in your closet that if your husband could sneak in while you're doing this podcast and throw out, what would it be?
Oh my God. My husband and I, we've been together for 31 years. And I have this, I'm not going to say my closet, well, probably our warehouse, because we have very active discussions to the point of arguments about what equipment to sell or what equipment to keep. And I have this obsession with bakery equipment, and I have some that have been just stagnant. And all of them, like at our leadership meetings, they're like, we need to get rid of it. I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to get it fixed. We're going to use it. Like, don't do it. Cause I really like that. But you know, that's kind of my thing. I'm not much of like, I'm not a person, like I'm not one of the, you know, people who goes and shops for like designer bags, or that's not something that I am like I do, but I do. I think now I'm confessing, I do things that are not necessarily useful because I feel like that piece of bakery equipment is a deal. I mean, you know, I was not right now because I'm not allowed to anymore, very much obsessed with like bakery auctions.
I love that. One day you'll be on Antique Roadshow with your bakery goods.
I'm telling you, at one point it's gonna, you know, it's like everyone's like, it's sunk cost, but I'm like, no, it's not. It's still gonna be useful. So yeah, so back and forth.
All right, one last question before we wrap up today. What is your reaction to the word impossible?
I find it funny because it's like when you say something's impossible, it's like a challenge, right? You're like, no, watch me. So, you know, it's like sometimes, you know, it's challenging. It really depends on the day, though. It depends on how much energy I have. If like I've just worked all day and it's one of those days that's just like my energy's down, I'm like, yeah, it's impossible, whatever. You know, but most of the time, you know, when it's like I can't say nothing is impossible because, you know, it really depends on who's saying it and whether or not they have the will and the intent to do it. But if you have the intention, I don't think anything is impossible. Like if you have the determination and intention to make things happen and you're prepared and you're aligned, it's your purpose. If it's your life purpose, I don't think it is impossible. I've seen a lot of miracles that happen because of that. Yeah.
Odette, thank you so much for joining us today on the Shrimp Tank. It's great to hear more depth in your story, your energy, your enthusiasm. For listeners who want to learn more about you or your business, what is the best way for them to get more information?
Well, you could find me on Celebrity Gourmet Podcast to listen to me and my guests. I'm going to be interviewing more people, and there's also portions about me and my family. And, you know, you could look at our website, celebritycakestudio.com, and you could also see us at dragonflycakes.com, or you can reach me at Odette at celebritygourmet.com, and I can call you back, or find me on LinkedIn. I know, you could just Google me and find me, and I'll be friends with you.
Odette is also ubiquitous. For all of our guests, make sure you check out the replays of our show at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, or wherever you get your podcast, iHeart, Google, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and please follow our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Odette, really a pleasure having you on today. I live in Paulsbo, so I'm going to be making a trip down the South Sound to check out to check everything out. I can't wait to do that. Thank you for being on the show. It was delightful. Michelle, as always, and congratulations on having a senior. As always, it was great seeing you. I look forward to seeing you again in September. Everyone, our next show will be on Wednesday, September 6th. As you know, we live stream every Wednesday at noon Pacific time. Our guest, we're going down I-5. We're going to meet with Dominic DiBartolomeo. I had to practice that. Dominic DiBartolomeo from Dominico's Foods in LA. He's got a really cool business, and we're going to talk to him about that. Craig Swanson will be my co-host. So in the meantime, first of all, have a great Labor Day weekend for everybody. Enjoy that. Be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.